Today, we're living in this amazing multi-platform world. And as previous speakers have spoken to, we're now seeing a quarter of people with 3 or more devices. I'm guessing, knowing many of you, that many of you have 4 or 5 connected devices. 60% of users now have 2 or more devices. So as marketers, you're increasingly challenged with this idea of how do you understand a person rather than a device? Because a core component of marketing is not just understanding how many screens you're reaching, but how many actual people. So this trend of people using more and more devices is really tough. People are also spending more and more time on these devices. So consumers today spend up to 3 hours a day on mobile, much of that on Facebook. But spread across all the various different apps that they use, 3 hours is actually now rapidly overtaking TV. So for average consumers, they're actually spending often more time in mobile than they are on television. So this creates a challenge. It means that the old ways of doing things are no longer working. Consumers today, particularly younger, are using these devices interchangeably as well. There was an amazing study, and this is an interesting video, where they attached a camera to a high schooler. This sounds a little creepy, I realize, and actually did research on how many times a day does the average high schooler actually switch between devices. Turns out the average number is 26. And what that means for marketers is you can't even just assume that one device represents one person anymore. They're going to switch between multiple devices in multiple use cases and use the right device for the environment they want to work in right now. So what does this mean for the future? Well, if we extrapolate out these trends, and I don't want to be quoted on these come 1920, because track records suggest that won't be good, it means we're going to live in a world where people have more and more of these different devices. And we're rapidly getting to a time where people have to have 7, 8, 9, 10 connected devices. I did a count for myself, 7. Between my various fitness devices and my connected TV and my games console and my iPad and my laptop, 7 different devices. So the old ways don't work anymore. The times when you could buy a TV ad and measure reach and frequency effectively using a Nielsen GRP just on that TV spot is no longer valid. So we need to come up with new solutions to address the challenges of new times. The old ways are unfortunately very ineffective, and that has prevented advertisers from being able to keep pace of their marketing budgets with the time that consumers are spending. 25% of consumer media consumption time is now on mobile devices, and yet only 10% of media budgets. Why are advertisers only able to spend 10% of their budgets in a medium that consumers are spending a quarter of their time in? If all things were equal, these two numbers should be the same. And the reason is because we're using outdated technology. We're using cookies as proxies for people, and we're using technology designed for a world in which people just used one computer and loaded up one web browser in a world in which that truth no longer holds. This challenge of the old technology means that there are significant mismeasurements in both advertising delivery and performance. We see advertisers on old technology achieving 30% overstatement of reach. So what that means is you think you're reaching 100 people, you're actually only reaching 70. So all of those fundamental calculations of what does my investment actually drive in terms of real results are based on a flawed underlying assumption. There's also an understatement of frequency. So you think you're delivering 8 ads to a person. That same individual sees your ad 8 times. You're really showing that same person the ad 10 times. So both reach and frequency are significantly overstated. Accuracy is also way, way off. Only about 60% of age and gender targeting is accurate. What's amazing is I've seen some statistics suggesting that certain third-party cookies are actually only as good as 50-50 for gender. You may as well flip a coin. So the challenge that marketers are facing is they don't know enough about the people they're serving their ads to. They're not able to measure effectively how often they're reaching those people. They don't even really accurately know how many people they're reaching. These are pretty fundamental problems. The good news is that 15% of conversions are not captured. You see, even though you don't know how many people you're reaching, you're actually doing a bit better than you think you are. What that means is you think your ads created 10 sales, they actually created 12. So even with all this, you're not actually able to measure the outcomes you're generating, and actually the digital marketers in the room are not actually getting the credit they deserve. The reason for this is that about 94% of purchases still happen in physical stores. Although you and I probably spend an outsized proportion of our money with Amazon, don't sign up for Prime because, wow, they get you then. I buy everything on Amazon. Most people will go into a physical store and actually buy a product there. So when you show them an ad online or on their mobile device, the fact that they went into a store as a result and actually purchased a product is not captured. So you've got a bunch of really big challenges. 40% of people begin browsing on one device and then actually finish their checkout on another. So you're unable to map delivery of an ad shown in their web browser. You buy a standard display unit on desktop web, not able to capture that when they go to their mobile phone to check out, or vice versa. So I've set up a good problem set here, right? Everyone thinks this is a real challenge that is going to be very, very hard to solve. But we think we've got some really interesting solutions. The solution that we've captured is what we refer to as people-based marketing. And the idea behind people-based marketing is a fundamental shift in the way that ads are both targeted and measured. It's a world in which ads are no longer delivered against cookies, but against people, where we use Facebook login to identify a unique user across all their devices, and are then able to tie back delivery of that ad not just to a device, but to a person. So people-based marketing is cross-device by design. If someone uses Facebook on their browser, on their desktop, they use it on their cell phone, they use it on their iPad, we're able to understand that that's one person. And so when we see that person, regardless of which device they're using, cross-device is automatically solved. It's also able to capture that bridge between online and offline. So if we show an ad to someone, we're able to understand that person at a very deep level. We're able to understand things like their phone number, their email address, their interests. And what that means is when that person goes into a store and buys a product and checks out using their store card, which is registered to their phone number, we're able to understand that that is the same person that saw an ad just 24 hours earlier, because it's all tracked back to a person, not a cookie.